short and sweet, and because I have to go to another meeting at 10:30. But okay, so everybody knows the topic of today's training, and some of you guys have already started to contribute to it by filling out the Cybersecurity Bill of Materials using our latest form. So I'm going to provide a high-level introduction to cybersecurity. And this is something that is relatively new for the FDA in terms of their focus on a review of any applications for clearance of a medical device. And this is within the past couple of years that they've emphasized this. So it's really important for us to perform and document both in our assessment of cybersecurity risks in our design, and in our assessment and in our report. We do need to have a cybersecurity risk assessment report that summarizes all of the things that we've done to address cybersecurity. And that's part of the application, and that's how they'll review it. So they'll focus on that. So at a high level, the goals of cybersecurity assessment, management, and design is really, as with all things FDA, when they review something, is safety and efficacy. I can't repeat that enough. That's really their main those are the main objectives when they review whether it's a device or a pharmaceutical. Is it safe and is it effective relative to what we claim? And that is worth emphasizing because cybersecurity also focuses on that. Okay, so here, the goal of the design is to prevent unauthorized use, prevent any subversion of the system in terms of functionality, safety, and security. And some of these other ones, like detecting cybersecurity events in a timely fashion, respond and contain it, and design to recover. Those are also the objectives. And a lot of whether we address them or not is sort of contextual, meaning we have to evaluate the risk that a cybersecurity event poses, as well as the environment and context in which it operates, or the device operates. And that's what's really reasonable about their guidance, the FDA guidance on that. Okay, so it all starts with risk assessment. And this is part of that form that we have, 0055 Form B, which is the cybersecurity risk management plan. And that's what the team, the software or the engineering team has been contributing to. So you have to identify the assets, threats, and vulnerability. And assess it with how it impacts the safety of users and patients. And in this case, we usually think of patients as the human subject part of this, but it also emphasizes the users too, because some medical device can harm the user just as much as the patient. And we assess the likelihood of threat and the vulnerability being exploited. This is, again, really important because it is contextual, and I'll say a little bit of that in the next slide. And so it's very much like our hazard analysis. We have a likelihood and of a cybersecurity threat. What are the safety issues, and how we would mitigate the risk. Okay. And then, of course, just like the hazard analysis or just like testing, if we have to perform a residual risk analysis to justify why we would accept the remaining risks or hazards. And this is this is really important to emphasize for cybersecurity. Again, it is focused on harm or safety and efficacy. So cybersecurity here, when we talk about risks and harms, we're not talking about exposure of patient identifying information that can be used to steal your identity and so on. What we usually think of in our everyday use of services like emails and so on, and protection of our identity. This is our the FDA cybersecurity approach. It doesn't address that. Again, it's safety and efficacy. So it's defined to physical harm or restricted to physical harm. And the cybersecurity issue then is, how can a failure in cybersecurity, allow a device to be exploited in such a way that it compromises the safety and essential performance of the device? Meaning, so as an example, if our TES device delivers current, and how can a breach be exploited to have it operate beyond the parameters and beyond the intention, beyond our claims, such that more current, as an example, could be delivered and harm the patient, or that it could be modified such that it goes around our safety protocols for treatment, as an example, meaning, allowing more treatment sessions, as an example, to be applied. And so, or it could be such that it just generally overrides any of our safety parameters or controls. And here, this is part of the context. The medical device, the standing or the position of FDA is that it's a shared responsibility between the hospital, the users, even the patients, and of course us. The last point here, likelihood, is an analysis of exploitability, not probability. The little detail here is that what is the likelihood that it will be exploited? Meaning that maybe there isn't a vulnerability at the moment, or there is a vulnerability, but the efforts to go through and take advantage or exploit the vulnerability, and includes the resources, the motivation, and to do so. So the probability that that's that eliminates, any sort of objective approach or criteria for probability, because it's unknown. So they take the position of, how motivated and how hard is it for somebody to try to exploit a potential vulnerability, and that's part of the risk analysis. So what we have here in-house is a management plan. It starts with the management plan, and we have these forms here. Please review 0055B at some point, and send Dana a note that you've reviewed the form. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it is a systematic way for us to document that we've done our due diligence, if you want to use that word, during the design process. And it's something that we have to complete at a first pass complete by phase 2. Ideally, this is done several times throughout phase 2. Initially, when we plan on developing the device, the product, and it all starts with the tools and the underlying technologies that we plan to use during the development of the device. And that's where the cybersecurity bill of material comes in. And in the case of our current projects, that's really all of the software components and services, et cetera, that we plan on using and deploying. Really, it comes down to the deployment. Some of the things that we use during development aren't relevant to the deployment, because those, as an example, those libraries may not be present in the deployed device. But we have to identify all of the technologies that we will use. And then we have to check against some database to see if those components appear in the database with regards to known cybersecurity risks and exploits. So we list all of those, and then we provide a context for it via a system architecture, and give so it allows us reviewers an understanding of the vulnerability relative to the design and use of the device. Once we have that, then we do the cybersecurity risk assessment, and that, for most people, will be very familiar in the approach. We have a Excel spreadsheet, 0013, the cybersecurity risk assessment. We'll perform that quite soon, but we can't for one of our projects here. But we can't do that until we have 0055 be the plan, because the risk assessment, again, is relative to the components that we identify and what we do know about whether a vulnerability already exists. And that is based on the standard, the AAMI TIR there, 57 2016. For those that are interested in that standard, we do have the reference document for it. So you can ask Dana where it is if you want to look at it. You don't have to. I'll lead the cybersecurity risk assessment and orient everyone to the form. You guys don't have to be trained on that form. It's mainly who leads the risk analysis that needs to be trained, and in this case, that's me, and I helped develop it. So we'll just get you with the familiarity with it. So that's the high level overall orientation to cybersecurity. Are there any questions?
So you'd like us all to review the form 0055B?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. It'll give a lot of definitions that we'll be using. It gives a little more detail to some of the ideas here and how they relate to the actual project or projects. And what I recommend, and you review it not in its blank form, okay? So Roma will shortly have a cybersecurity management plan, either for Sorcerer or Flow. We're very close to it. Roma, when you do have one, even if it's a first version, before I review it, send it out to or let people know, or send it out to the people on this training list. That'll be much more helpful in that it's not just a blank form. It'll be something that people can have a context for.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Once you review that, just let Dana know that you reviewed it, you understand it, and that'll complete our training here.
So I'll send training record that includes all these elements that you mentioned, Fan.
Yeah.
So I think that's enough. They don't need to send an additional email.
Good. Good.
So Van, for a while, I know we used to consider like exposing patient information as part of cybersecurity, and I know that was kind of the biggest change that you figured out, is that doesn't really belong here, and instead we're just doing kind of issues related to safety. For things like that, exposing information or other kind of maybe denial of service vulnerabilities, where do we address those then? Is it just part of regular software development, or is there anything else that we would be documenting that and assessing risk?
Well, two parts to that. Yes, when we started this, I had very little familiarity with it because it's relatively new, and it wasn't something that we actually did in my time at EGI, so I didn't have much familiarity with it. And so that was part of my misunderstanding until I dug into the FDA guidance document and about what they mean about cybersecurity. They explicitly say this is not HIPAA concern. They just say that the device manufacturer, of course, has to consider HIPAA compliance, but they don't regulate that. So I think, for us, as long as some of these, the cybersecurity stuff will indirectly address the HIPAA concerns, meaning, like access to inflow, as an example, access to patient information is secured via permissions and passwords and so on, like that. But other aspects we won't address, like, when data is shown or exported, do we have functionalities that comply, meaning strip identifying information out? that may be more specific, and down the road we may want to document that in some way in terms of features and functions. Maybe like a hospital will want us to give them a checklist of what we do, but it's not considered as, again, as part of the design and development life cycle that the FDA does. The other the second part, sorry, there was a second part to your question that I tabbed, but now just forgot. So that's the identifying information. What was the other part, Ian?
Just any other vulnerabilities like denial of service, for example.
Right. The denial of service can be important, and it could be relevant to a safety and efficacy. So in that case, we do need to address. So as an example would be, if it is a treatment device and it's the denial of service prevents delivery of treatment, or if there's some reason why a denial of service could affect safety, we have to consider that.
Okay, but only if it affects safety, like you said.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. It was really nice to understand, you know, that essentially that's what they're saying is anything that affects safety and efficacy, and in this case, physical safety, and of course, efficacy is related to the physical aspect too. So harm as a physical definition, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I remember when we started about a year or two ago, when we were only talking about cybersecurity, it was thinking about, you know, the social identity theft and all of that other stuff was, oh my gosh, where do you end? So it was really nice to be informed about this on my part. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Let me just ask a question then, briefly, for Stephen Schaffner. Maybe you don't know this, but I imagine, because my time at Philips was very limited, did you ever have to go through a cybersecurity analysis, Stephen?
No, we never formally implemented that. I think it probably would have happened, but
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you have familiarity with it and if you had any comments. Of course, this is not just software, restricted to software only products. This would be relevant to our EEG system too, because it's a connected device, and it relies on software as well. So any point of potential exploit when it's a connected device, this is this becomes relevant. Okay. All right, short and sweet, guys. And if you guys have any questions, send it to Dana and me afterwards.
Okay, we'll receive the record to sign today.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.